Welcome. I am Laureen Quick. I am truly grateful to be here today with Janice Debo as part of our ongoing conversations leading up to the Next Chapter Summit happening July 9th through 12th. This year's summit is focused on independence after 50. And I'm not talking about independence in terms of isolation or self-sufficiency, but rather independence as in learning how to stay connected to yourself, true to yourself, while also remaining deeply connected to others. Janice's work aligns beautifully with one of the themes that we will be exploring throughout the summit: reclaiming your voice, trusting yourself more deeply, and learning to show up more honestly and confidently in this stage of life. Janice is a personal development trainer, coach, and podcast host whose work centers around clarity, communication, confidence, and helping people to understand how they can step more fully into who they are. Today's conversation is titled Reclaiming Your Voice After 50, and together we are going to explore what begins to shift when women reconnect with their own voice after maybe years of roles, expectations, self-doubt, or becoming who others need us to be happens. Janice, I am delighted to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to jump right into my first question and then throw it over to you. You
Okay.
know, many women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, they start to realize that they have spent years being what or who other people needed them to be. From your perspective, what shifts when a woman starts reconnecting with her own voice again?
From my experience personally and people I've known, you wind up building up, and when you have the courage to step into that, you gain more confidence and the ability to learn who you really are. It takes time, reflection, and it's important to to be able to speak your own with your own voice and know who you are. But probably one of the hardest questions anybody will ever answer is, who am I? And so that is not what you do. That is not a job or responsibilities. That is, who are you internally?
And that is a tough one to answer because, like you said, we're taught to speak in terms of roles. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an analyst, or I'm whatever it is that I do most of the days of my life. And again, we get disconnected from who we are internally. So when someone's asked that, they kind of sometimes I see deer in the headlights kind of looks. I have no idea who I am. And in fact, many of us end our 40th decade and move into our 50th decade wondering exactly who am I?
Hmm.
And it does take a lot of courage, doesn't it, to face that question and answer it truthfully.
Well, it does. And actually, I was a lot later in life than 40s when I even thought about it because a few years ago, maybe 15, a friend of mine was going to Toastmasters, and she came to another group that we were in together and said she just got an assignment for her next speech, her next talk. And she was to answer that question, who am I, without saying what she did. And she was struggling, really struggling because her identity was wrapped up in being a mom, being a wife, being a whatever in business. And when you take all that away, who are you?
And that's exactly what happens to us. And for me, it was in my 60s when my children were all gone. My husband had passed away. And I like woke up and wondered, what do I have? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? Who am I? And that began the beginning of a great 7 years of exploration and a lot of personal growth. But it is hard work, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. I've been on this journey now for, I don't know, 15 years or so. I've been coaching for 9. And before that, well, probably longer, Laureen, because I was journaling back 30 some years ago. And
Hmm.
that journaling, when I reflect back and go back and read some things, I'm like, oh my goodness, wow, we have really grown a lot. And yet it took till later, um, out of those 30 some years, it took another 20 before I started really facing some of the hard questions.
And I would say that's true for me as well, that the first few years were a lot easier than the last few years have been, in terms of looking at myself more deeply, being a lot more honest with
Hmm.
the answers that I gave myself. I'm not kidding myself anymore about whoever else's responsibility or fault that was, right? But
Right.
taking that on and saying that was me, and now I'm different, and now
Mhm.
I can do better, and will do better, and am doing better. So when you think about all that, because it is hard work for us, we can easily resist that idea.
Mhm.
What do you think women are actually longing for on an emotional level at this stage of life that might motivate them, allow them to want to change?
My first thought would be to be heard, to be acknowledged, and
Mhm.
to feel safe to do so. And I love when I coach people and I get to listen, and even in my podcast to let people know they're safe. I just got a great message from one of my last interviews. This lady had never been on a podcast before. And I didn't know that. I didn't know she was nervous. It didn't show. She goes, "You're so calming." And I love to bring that calming to people so they know you're heard, and help people to, men and women, but especially women, because we've tended to be in the background.
Mhm.
It's it takes I think women want to be heard and acknowledged and respected too. I'll throw that in there. Uh, Respect, of course, love is in there, but that means different things to different people.
Mhm. And this word safe is really a very powerful word. It's one that I didn't really pay much attention to until this last year of my life. Because, well, first off, what I began to understand is I felt safe because of other people in my life. I felt safe because my husband was there. I felt safe because my parents were there, or I felt like I had to be brave because my daughters were there, maybe, but not necessarily safe. And I've come to learn that there is levels of safety and that we can, do everything we can to keep our environment safe and us physically inside that environment. But the real challenges begin when we have to look to ourselves to feel safe inside ourselves, safe enough to speak up,
Hmm.
safe enough to take a risk,
Right.
safe enough to say yes. How do you, when you're working with your clients, how do you help them develop that sense of self safety?
Ooh, that is right up there with self-love, because I believe when we learn to really love ourselves and trust ourselves, we will feel safe with ourselves.
Mhm.
But that trust and love has to come first. Self-love and self-trust has to come before feeling safe, in my experience and from what I've seen, because a lot of us, mostly women that I deal with, have been through domestic violence,
Mm,
and so there has to be an emotional safety and a physical, of course. But I think trusting myself has been one of the harder things I've had to do, because of bad decisions in the past, like a lot of us have made. And I, in a lot of cases, didn't feel safe with some of the people in my life. But
mhm.
learning to feel safe with myself and knowing that I could trust myself finally was a huge, huge acknowledgement.
I think it is. And I think it is inevitable if you keep doing the work.
Hmm.
But it does take some time to really cultivate that sense of I can get myself in and out of any situation I choose. I trust myself mentally, emotionally, and also on the physical plane to handle what's come my way. And I'm
Yes.
I'm closer to that than I've ever been my entire life, I think, right now. And
Yeah.
that makes me feel happy. It makes me feel safe to relax and enjoy what's going on versus always trying to imagine what's the next thing that's going to happen and am I prepared for that or is someone going to help me or whatever that might be. So Yes, and I agree with you totally, Janice. It is about self-trust. We
Mhm.
we love ourselves, we learn to love ourselves, but we also learn to trust ourselves. Yeah,
Exactly.
very,
Exactly.
very powerful. Well, one quick final question then. What would you say? Well, maybe it's not so quick. What would you say to a woman who knows that there is something she wants to say, there is something she wants to change or express in her life, but she still is feeling fully not ready and she's
Oh,
afraid to step into it.
one of my favorite things to talk about, that is to start writing, start journaling, get a notebook, whatever you're comfortable with. And of course, I do have a journal, a little plug there, that helps guide people step by step with, funny stories, things like that. But in general, whatever, whether it's a three-ring binder, a spiral notebook, get something and just sit down and listen to yourself. Write what's on your heart. Start with writing. Very few of us just jump in and start being on TV and speakers and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's most of us that are doing what we're doing now, we've written, we've done a lot of writing, and we've gone inside and written it down. It's so imperative to me, and I do have to twist the arm of clients every now and then. They get a journal, they get my journal with the program. So I was like, okay, you're gonna do this and you're gonna love it. But most people, like, I don't know what I'm gonna say. I was like, nobody's reading it but you. And so I used to write like somebody else was gonna read it. And I went, Janice, nobody's reading this. And but if they do, you're gonna be gone and you're not gonna care. So I tell people start with writing, doing some journaling. If you need to, go outside. I know you're a real outdoor buff. Go outside and sit in a chair, sit on a log, take a notebook with you. And if you all you do is write, oh, I hear the birds. Isn't that lovely? The sun's shining, the breeze is blowing. I mean, it may sound silly. You got to start somewhere. And writing is where I would recommend anybody and everybody to start
Great.
before you start speaking out. And then if you have a close friend you can trust, that you can start speaking your truth to, then do it. But be aware you need to feel safe and that person needs to be someone you can trust.
Absolutely. Great advice. Great advice. So, Janice, I want to say thank you so much for this conversation today. What I do appreciate always about you is that you have this perspective that, is works for me as a reminder that reclaiming your voice is not really about becoming louder
Mm-mm,
or more performative. It really is about just becoming more honest, more
mm.
self-connected, and more willing to trust yourself. Exactly. And I think this conversation will resonate with many women who are beginning to recognize that they may have spent years adapting, accommodating, silencing themselves in order to fit what others have been expecting of them. If
Boy,
that's you and you are listening or watching today, Janice will be joining us live at the July Next Chapter Summit. That is actually, she'll be with us on July 12th, but the summit runs from the 9th through the 12th and is a series of conversations for women exactly in this place, looking to find or reconnect with themselves and to create a life that they are feeling safe and happy and content. It's going to be a beautiful, this conversation will be continued as we go forward into the summit. It's going to be beautiful. And I hope that you can join us. In the notes to this video, there is a link that you can click on to learn more about the summit and to sign up. And again, Janice, I really want to thank you for not only being here today, but for saying yes to being a part of this summit. I'm really looking forward to diving more into this topic in our summit conversation. Thanks everyone for listening today. And again, I truly hope that you would be able to join us this July. Have a wonderful day.